To the June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Planning Commission. For those of you viewing the meeting remotely, you will find the meeting agenda on the Planning Department website at accgov.com/planning. For those of you attending in person, on the table by the door, you will find a sign-in sheet and copies of tonight's agenda. For each agenda item, we will begin with a report from ACC planning staff, which will be followed by a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes. We will then hear from members of the public. 3 minutes are allowed for any member of the public who wishes to address the commission. When addressing the commission, please provide your name, address, and the nature of your interest in the project, and direct your comments to the planning commission and not to the applicant. The audience is instructed to refrain from applauding or jeering the speaker. Exhibits may be displayed by the applicants or by members of the public at the podium. Written correspondence received by noon yesterday has been forwarded to the Planning Commission and is part of the public record. Any additional written materials to be placed into the record must be read by a commenter during public comment within the 3-minute time limit. For all speakers, please pay attention to the timing device near the podium. The device will display a yellow warning light when you have 30 seconds left, and then a red light when your time is up. After the public comment period, the applicant or their representative may request a 2-minute response. And after that, the applicant will take their seat in the audience. At this point, the public portion of the agenda item will be closed and the Planning Commission will proceed to discuss the item. We will receive no additional public or applicant comments unless requested by a Planning Commission. Finally, please note that the microphones in this room are sensitive and that the meeting is being broadcast live. Please turn off or silence your cell phones. So we'll begin with general business section on our agenda. Item 1 is introduction of staff reports and other documents submitted to the Planning Commission at this meeting into the official record.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah, second by Joey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is approval of the June 6th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the vice chair role and that's all I need to do, right?
Okay, Commissioner Beresford has moved to reconsider an item on the minutes from our last June 6th, 2024 meeting. And it was the last item under other business, the appointment of Commissioner Beresford as vice chair for the next year. So there's a motion to reconsider that. Do I hear a second? Second by Joey. All in favor?
Aye.
So
Can I make a motion to nominate Kristen Morales as vice chair?
yes. Okay, the motion is to nominate Commissioner Kristen Morales as vice chair. Motion by Sarah Beresford and second by Joey Tucker. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously.
So do I need to make a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
Yes.
So move to approve with change.
Okay. Second again. All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes with that change. Motion by Sarah, second by Joey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carried. Item 3 on the general business section is May Court's review and public comment. Mark and Bruce, is there any May Courts?
Not much. They're coming towards their October deadline for their MTP update, which is the large metropolitan transportation plan. And so they will be coming up for a vote in August. They need to get that all done by October. So just a little bit of information.
Okay. I'm sorry, is there any member of the public here to comment on May Court's regional transportation? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to old business.
Oh, excuse me. You could barely hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
barely hear what you're saying. So we don't, and then your voice will go down and they'll ask a question that has a turn. So is there any mic that you guys can talk into?
There's not, but we can speak up.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll do our best to speak up. Okay, the next item on the agenda under old business, item 1 is 5100 Atlanta Highway and 0 Atlanta Highway and 2495 Cleveland Road. Item number PD 2023 12 2444. And we'll begin with the staff report.
Good evening, everyone. For the benefit of our audience, my name is Stephen Jaques, planner on staff here. We'll be presenting the staff report for this particular proposal. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from commercial general and single family residential 8 to commercial general and single family residential 5 with a planned development. This requires a change to the future land use map as well. And so they've requested to change it from employment center, general business, and traditional neighborhood to just general business and traditional neighborhood. We'll have a map to show what that looks like in a second. Proposal is for 227 single-family units, 198 attached and 29 detached. They would all be for the attached products would all be fee simple, which means that they would be owned. There's also a proposal for 11,000 square feet of commercial space at the front of the property. That building would be at where Atlanta Highway touches the property. And then the single family, it's going to be a mixture of alley loaded and front loaded products. So most of them will be accessed via an alley. That'll be where you park your car in your garage. Some will be accessed from the front. And the rest of the property will be that RS5 zone. There are 6 waivers requested. Staff supports 5 of them and does not support 1. These waivers are outlined in your staff report. They're also included here for reference. Number 6 is the one that we don't support. It's the landscape buffer between a parking lot and the street. We feel like the applicant can shift their plan a little bit to comply with that. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. This is an aerial of the site. Here's Atlanta Highway running through the bottom here. This is Cleveland Road as it comes down. This is a railroad line, CSX, I believe. Comes through all of Athens there. And then this is the Caterpillar site right here at the corner, the lower corner. You can see the property is mostly wooded. This front area is unoccupied. It's grass. May have been agricultural at some point, but long since passed. This is on the left. You see the future land use as it currently exists. We have the big purple part is the employment center, and that's what would go away. We have 3 parcels. You can see it on the right highlighted. We have the Cleveland Road parcel, the large Atlanta Highway parcel, and then the smaller one right here. And you can see on the purple stands out because it's the only parcel like it on that side of the road. So we would be moving towards a future land use map that is more compatible with the surrounding area. We have a little bit of a mismatch between what the zoning calls for and what the future land use calls for. Anytime that happens, it makes sense to reconsider one or the other. So we view the switch in future land use here to be compatible with the map. This is the zoning map. It's going to look very similar. The front of the property right now is zoned commercial general. They're going to reduce that to just a small area where that 11,000 square foot building is going to be. It's on your site plan. And then the rest of it would be an RS5, all of it under a planned development designation. If you see just in the corner, there's a little tip there that is also RS5. And so this zoning, we don't necessarily consider it an isolated zone because there is some zoning like this in the vicinity. The rendering of the site plan, you can see primarily townhomes, mostly accessed via alleys. We've got our commercial here at the very bottom, about 11,000 square feet. Going to be a little bit of a miniature node there. Might have some shops that residents can use, be across from Caterpillar. So there'll be an opportunity to create a little tiny node here with a mix of residences, some commercial and some workplace opportunities. We have our amenity area at the front here. And then there's some single family detached around the edges. The proposal last time had a large multifamily building up front, and that has been removed at this time. I put this image up here because one of the things in the staff report is the sewer access. So this is how they how they could consider, there are 4 options that they could use to tie into the sewer. 2 of those options would require a lift station. As a county, those would be publicly maintained. As county staff, we don't support that because that's a much bigger expense for infrastructure. And then the 2 options on the back could be gravity connection, which is a much easier to maintain, much better deal from a financial standpoint. They've had some trouble with property owners not letting them tie in there, but that would be the option. And we have a condition to that effect recommending a gravity connection here because the difference between gravity and pump station is just enormous from a financial impact standpoint. Surrendering of the commercial building. And then I will show you the houses here. We have, these are the detached ones. And these are the townhomes. As you can see, these don't have a garage on the front because they've got their garage on the back. And that's good for building social opportunities in the neighborhood. You can come out and interact without having the cars there. Just generally more from an urban design standpoint, it sets better conditions for the neighborhood to have more neighborly interactions. Summary of our staff report and our recommendation here. We've noted that there's compatibility here with the 2023 comprehensive plan. There's on the pro side, we've got some residential and commercial mixed in with the neighborhood near jobs. We like to see that kind of mix rather than having everything separated. Makes it easier to access. On the con side, we would love to see, particularly on these larger projects, more diversity in housing variety. It may be very efficient to deliver 1 or 2 types of housing over and over again, but that sacrifices some of the resilience, sacrifices a little bit of that diversity in terms of who can live there. So as planners, we would always recommend more of that resiliency and variety for that reason. We do deem it to be compatible with future land use map and the zoning map. The employment center doesn't really match the zoning underneath, and general business and traditional neighborhood are matching both what the underlying zoning is and the neighborhood. Like I said, there's 6 waivers requested. Staff supports 5, not the other one. A gravity sewer connection is needed. That's a big deal here. Or at least a sewer connection is needed. Staff would recommend a gravity connection. There are some technical issues outlined in the report. These are being handled via the conditions that have been listed here, particularly thinking about how we get trees to mix with our utilities and getting all of the different infrastructure requirements satisfied. So we're recommending approval of the future land use change and then approval of the zoning with some conditions. And those conditions are here. I would make a note that these have been slightly tweaked to tighten them up a little bit for legal purposes. And so we would use the conditions as they're listed on the screen rather than what's in your staff report. And that concludes the staff report. So I'll leave this up for reference.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Ed Lane with SPG Planners and Engineers at 1725 Electric Avenue in Watkinsville. I'm speaking on behalf of 5100 Atlanta Highway Project. You'll notice I'm not Joseph Bates, who's listed as the petitioner. Joseph and his wife had a baby this morning, so you're stuck with me making the presentation. I'd like to use my time to kind of address, if I could just outline it, is first some of the changes that have been made since the preliminary application after hearing feedback from neighbors, staff, and this body. And then also discuss some of the staff comments, some of the technical items that they brought up, and then finally spend time discussing the sewer service. So in the preliminary review, a primary concern that we heard from neighbors was related to traffic and just the scale of the development, and especially the multifamily component of that. So as you can see, that's been scaled back, actually a 40% reduction in the residential units, which led to about a 25% reduction in the traffic. And in addition to that, we connected through Cleveland Road, a closer connection to the intersection. Now route during those peak hours provides a route by which that traffic can get to the traffic signal at Dozer Drive to alleviate some of that peak hour pressure that they currently see. And that with this would bring even more of that pressure. And so the project now, as Stephen presented, we've got 227 fee simple lots. Some of those are single family, some are townhomes arranged, some on a green, some facing the street. So we've got a variety in the arrangement of those homes, as well as some commercial and some really nice amenities, natural amenities, and active amenities. We also heard some expressed concern about this site possibly being too remote from some essential services for this many homes. And I would note that the site is 5 minutes from a fire station, 5 minutes from a police precinct. According to a conversation we had with administrators at the school, they indicated that Cleveland Road Elementary has the most capacity of any elementary school in Athens and the best student to teacher ratio. So we took that to mean from the school perspective that this was in line as well. So in considering that, we did not see any evidence or did not hear from any county departments that there were issues with service here other than sewer, which we will. Next, in the staff report, there were numerous technical matters that I don't think I'll have time to address them all individually. And so I want to summarize, I think that they have an elegant solution to this through the conditions, but I just wanted to summarize our position on these and why they hadn't been addressed, because we had some of these technical issues before. And I'll just say that, I believe a lot of these technical items are best addressed during the plans review process when we've had a chance to do detailed engineer drawings that we can go back and forth with the departments. And we view this more as, fundamentally a request about the appropriateness of this land use, the density, the form, the major infrastructure. And we were focused solving those matters. And so that some of these technical items still remain. But so things that are mentioned in the staff report, like bike racks and gravel beneath the sidewalk, the type of stormwater inlets, soil compaction, et cetera. These are all important, but very difficult for us to show compliance with or resolve some of those challenges during this, the PD process. But I believe we can solve a lot of that through plans review and the conditions. We accept the conditions that they propose. They actually provide, I think, ways to solve those either way. And the last item I'll add about these technical issues is, Max, if you could go to the last slide quickly. A significant majority of the technical issues that we have and we'll try to resolve is that we're trying to design these streets to look like the streets on your right, whereas the streets on your left are per ACC code, and a lot of these issues would go away. And there's the comments in there are not wrong. I understand they all are legitimate concerns. In our evaluation of what is better for the public in the final, tabulation, we believe these streets on the right are. Our local streets are the platforms for economic vitality, and we want them to look like this. So we fight this battle every time, even if we lose every time. But we believe we can find a healthy compromise once we get to plans review. And so lastly, I'd like to address the sewer. If you go one slide back, Max. Yes, okay. So there, as mentioned, there's 4 different routes here, 2 gravity, 2 that would have to be pumped. I want to mention that if either a lift station is built on this site or if gravity is brought to this site, it is not just bringing sewer to this project. It would open up roughly that entire red dashed line there becomes a potentially extended sewer service delivery area. From what we understand with the utility department, everything south of Atlanta Highway where that sewer goes, they are maxed out on capacity. So, you know, if you expand the sewer service delivery, it doesn't matter. Their treatment plants are maxed out. That is not the case south of Atlanta Highway. They do have additional capacity. I'm not saying they have enough to exactly treat all of this. They would have to study that. But it's important to show it's not just for this project. Now, with the four options, two of them that are obviously much preferred by everyone, including the developer, public utilities, and I think everyone. It's gravity sewer, much cheaper, easier to achieve. One of them involves a private property owner. That option was heavily pursued by the developer, and that owner has their right. They just have no interest in even entertaining an offer for an easement in their property. The other route would require two property owners. One has already indicated they are fully on board. The other happens to be Walton, who owns the Winslow Park development. And they were amenable to it. It makes zero impact to their development. So they were like, sure. However, that land is under contract by D.R. Horton. And so because they're under contract, they wanted to confer and defer to D.R. Horton's opinion on the matter. And DR was opposed to it as it would be, you know, in their mind, aiding a competitor in the housing market. So those two options that were heavily pursued, we view as it currently stands, can't happen by the developer's own control. And as far as I know, the only person that would have an authority to make that happen would be Athens-Clarke County to make that happen. So we're going to be asking this body to not recommend that condition, simply that it's outside of the developer's control. And so we run the risk of this entire process being void and actually hindering this property with a binding PD that is unbuildable because of this one condition, when there would be other options with lift stations. And lift stations are not desirable. I know the city has recently approved one in response, as they're not desirable for our community, but we also need housing. And sometimes you have to evaluate these trade-offs. So the system that the Public Utilities Department has put in place to help offset those costs, it is pretty decent to offset those costs. It's a very large upfront cost to install a lift station and a down payment for the future operation of that. So I'm not saying that's the better option. We have to consider the trade-offs here. And so I would say, you know, condition or not, this developer, if this project goes forward, is still going to try again and again on the gravity, but it's ultimately up to if the sale goes through D.R. Horton. And so with that, I'll conclude. And of course, we're asking for your approval, but I thank you for your time and available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Is there any member of the public here to speak in favor of this application? Is there any member of the public here to speak in opposition to this application? You can step up to the podium one at a time.
Hi, my name's Angela McElhannon. I'm at 729 Fowler Mill Road and 144 Bob Wages Road. First of all, is there any way in the future that the 2-lane highway that you're planning on putting this gigantic thing on can be made into a 4-lane highway? Because it's gonna, in the future, gonna have to, because there's just too much traffic on the 4-lane Atlanta highway now. And then you're going to add this to the 4-lane, and then you're going to have a 2-lane highway that right now we can't get off Cleveland Road to get on Atlanta Highway turning left without almost getting killed. And then the second drive that comes out of this, whatever it's going to be called, is right here at the bridge. And as soon as you top that bridge, that drive coming out for all of these people is right there at the bridge. You can't see these people when you top, until you top the hill. So if these people are coming out, there's gonna be crashes galore. People are gonna get killed. And then you're still gonna take a chance on killing people trying to turn out on Cleveland Road. And in the last meeting, we were told, oh, you can drive through the neighborhood to get to the four-way stop to turn out the Cleveland Road. Who's gonna wanna do that? Fowler Mill's very, very busy road. Cleveland's a very busy road. I don't know why you have to go to this extent, why you can't just go with single homes like it's been put there. We have nice little neighborhoods in there. People own their own property. People love to have their own property. We like our privacy out there. We don't want blaring lights everywhere, nor tons of people everywhere. And we really don't need markets of any kind there. That's why we have a car to drive down the road to get where we need to go. As far as the schools, in the last meeting that I went to, I was told Cleveland Elementary could hold 100 more students just fine. Well, if all of these people in this neighborhood has 2 or 3 kids, where are all those kids going to go to school? Are we going to have to build new schools for the kids? And there's only so many places people can go. Also, when he was talking about sewage, are the people who are already there going to be forced to go on to water and sewage in Clarke County and then have a cost of that every month? So that's just basically some of the things I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.
Any other member of the public wishing to speak against? You can just take a turn.
Good evening. My name is Brad Akins. I reside at 820 Cleveland Road in Bogart. I use this road, to Cleveland Road, as it relates out to the Atlanta Highway daily as I go to work. For the last 8 years, having an operating farm on Cleveland Road, I do find it necessary during the week to sometimes return during the day. So I can fairly say over 8 years, I've experienced from 6 a.m. in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Saturday, and on Sundays going to church. The thing I'm speaking of in opposition of is development happens. I understand that, but I'd like to bring up some things on the 106 page A&R engineering traffic report that leaves concerns of this development, specifically as it relates to the access of driveways 2 and 3, if I'm correct, off of Cleveland Road, as well as the access to Cleveland, off Cleveland Road to the Atlanta Highway. And I'll be glad to send any of these things and questions to the committee after the meeting or tomorrow one. But I've reviewed the traffic study and proposed on this proposed development, and I've got a few questions on this. I'll refer to LOS as level of service in the report. And under both the current and post-build conditions, Cleveland Road is graded at a level E for the level of service. LOS E is typically assigned when the volume to capacity ratio is high, progression is very poor, the cycle length is long, and the individual cycle failures are frequent. LOSC is considered, if I understand from the report, a minimum acceptable LOS, like a report card A, B, C, D, E, and F. The Atlanta Highway at Cleveland Road currently, from what I understand from the traffic report that was provided from the county, as an LOSD. The impact study finds the southbound approach at the intersection Atlanta Highway with Cleveland Road to operate at a level service of E during the PM peak hour under both no build and build conditions. The study also found that all the stop control intersections will continue to operate at a LOS of D in peak hours. Therefore, the developer's own impact study demonstrates the current conditions are failing. Significant additional impact from this project projected by the report at 2,300 trips per day will contribute significantly to an already failing traffic system. With Cleveland Road Elementary there and the mention of potential students from this development and others, leaving dangerous conditions for both parents and students, as well as those daily commuters on this. Additionally, it should be noted that the developer study examined only the site access points proposed by the developer. It did not consider any alternatives or additional improvements such as upgraded Cleveland Road that could improve the remedy to an already deficient performance site location. We'd ask that ACC and the developer re-examine the access plan for this development, specifically as it relates to any and all access off of Cleveland Road, the Atlanta Highway, and traffic back and forth in those directions. I'd also like to note that on page 19 and 20, on the left-hand turns out of that, it meant, if I read it correctly, it was averaging 22 left turns, but during peak hours. I think myself and others can attest with confidence that during school hours, parents returning from school,
Thank you, Mr.
or that is incorrect.
Any other member of the public wishing to speak in opposition? You don't need to raise your hands. You can just step up to the podium.
Kerry Nams, 1185 Darlington Station Road. I'm a resident just across the railroad from this project. I retired from the railroad and moved back to Clarke County with my realtor opposed it, said, you need to be in Oconee or up around Jefferson. But I grew up in Clarke County, went to Clarke Central High School and wanted to come back home to retire, and bought 10 acres and a home, a single family home in a single family neighborhood. I'm just not sure how you can go from a piece of property that's zoned single family, and then now it's going to be connected single family, and then sign off on waivers to make it even denser property. My area of Cleveland Road where you can't get out on Atlanta Highway, when I moved back, I thought whoever did the planning for that project for the Caterpillar deal, why didn't that road come out of Cleveland Road and have a red light to service both ways with a school on Cleveland Road with young children on school buses every morning, every afternoon, trying to get out on Atlanta Highway. Very unsafe. Excuse me. And then you're going to add 248 or so homes to that problem. You're going to give them a way out, but you're going to cripple people trying to come off of Cleveland Road. Now, yeah, the school bus can go through a neighborhood to get out there, but I don't know how you can go from, I bought for single family and everything around us was single family. You got 3 new homes right there on Cleveland Road adjacent to that property. The next neighborhood past us have built several new single family homes. Now you're going to take a property that was zoned single family and zone it with multiple attached and then give a waiver to make it even more dense. I don't understand how we get to that. So I buy for my forever home, and then y'all want to change the rules in the middle of the game. I don't appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is John Aikens. I live at 118 Deer Hollow Road. I'm currently president of the Deerfield Subdivision HOA. Deerfield is closer to the other end of Cleveland Road. It's just across the CSX crossing. I don't have a problem per se with the development, but the access to the Atlanta Highway off Cleveland Road is a real concern for our neighborhood, especially with the redevelopment of Georgia Square Mall and the major construction that's going to occur on the Atlanta Highway at the Loop. So that's normally the way we go to Athens and to access 316 to Atlanta. But with all of that construction going on, we're going to be using the Cleveland Road Atlanta Highway and much more to access Athens and access Atlanta and 316. So as has already been brought to your attention regarding Cleveland Road and the connection with the Atlanta Highway, we have real safety concerns about that intersection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Faith Harris. I live at 2330 Cleveland Road. I already had an issue with them putting subdivisions directly across from me. So I did inquire about that, and I thought it was going to be 500 new homes over there. They said it was going to be 11. It's not too bad, but it ain't that good either. The thing is that when Fowler Mill had to close down because they were doing work on the train station, a lot of the traffic got converted to Cleveland Road. So it made Cleveland Road more busy. And that hasn't really stopped. And then when the subdivision came on, you know, the traffic just increased. So now we have where you guys are gonna put these ugly houses up here, some single, some stackables, throw-ups. They're gonna look like the houses that they're building on Statham, out in Statham, with those little, I don't even know, they put it on a piece of land that looks just like this, and they're really ugly. So as my fellow neighbors mentioned, we love our single family home area. It's quiet. You can't even walk on Cleveland Road anymore because there's so much traffic. And no matter how you divert the traffic or you say you're gonna do it, it's not gonna work in our favor. We can't walk out there. We can't, you get hit by something, a bus, a car, a truck, people flying over the little overpass where the train comes. So I'm just wondering, for one thing, how many of you guys live on Cleveland Road? And does it affect you the way it affects us? And our property taxes are going to go through the roof. They're already up. They're about to go even higher if you guys put this contraption up here. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. However, and therefore, if you don't live on the road and you haven't lived there, and I had my house built there in 206, moved in 208, the most beautiful, quietest road, and that's why I moved there. But now, with all this other stuff that's coming on, it's gonna be horrible for the neighbors, for all our neighbors that are there. So, you know, I don't know if you guys care. I don't know why this has to be done. I don't know why something else couldn't have been talked about. Could you have put maybe 4 or 5 big houses in the front, not a neighborhood of 247, 27, whatever number you guys got up there. So I just think you should really consider the neighbors and how we feel about things.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Hi, I work with the city of Bogart, and our mayor, Grace.
Address.
Grace Martin, and I live at 490 Fowler Mill Road. And I work for the city, and we have really yet to be notified of anything, either by the developer or the county. We kind of found out on a whim that this was happening with the sign, and the sign is like negative 0.5 font, which is not fun to have that happen to you. And about the services like police and stuff, the only bridge that crosses over the CSX Railroad is on Cleveland Road. And when you input that much traffic on that road, that cuts into response time. If there's a train coming, that's gonna cut into that time if there's a bunch of people on that road already. So we really ask you to give consideration next time to the city, because this is going to be taxing on our library, our resources, our roads, because it's not even a quarter mile down the road. And we were not notified at all of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak in opposition to this project?
My name is Paul Bearden. I live off of Huff Lake Road. Our big concern is not only the traffic coming out, but the safety. We got a neighborhood just right down the road that pizza can't even go down there and deliver because there's too much crime going on. And do we know the base price of these houses? What they're gonna be? Is it gonna be low income? What it's gonna be? Does anybody know that?
It's not a Q&A. You're welcome.
Okay,
to comment.
right across the street, you got where Fresh Air was, you have, every time it rains, it floods because it's caving in, nobody's fixed it. We come out of Cleveland, there's no, red light coming out on the street. So it's always fun to get out on, busy days. And then, tree lines coming out of our subdivision. They want them trim the trees down, and cars get approached, and we pull out and already committed, and it gets dangerous there too. So there's a lot of safety concerns. And, you know, this, I think it's all about money. And is that partial, that the house burned down? Is that part of it? That is.
Big coincidence.
Just wondered.
Thank you, Mr. Bearden. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak in opposition to the proposal? All right, at this time, the applicant has minimum of 2 minutes to respond.
Sure. Regarding traffic, in 2 minutes, I'll just mention a few things. There was a traffic impact study done. That report was coordinated with ACC and reviewed by ACC Transportation and Public Works. If you look at the level of service charts, none are a level F. Some do, and this is with the future build out that imagines this project as well as just natural growth in the area. So some level of services improve just on the configuration and some get worse. None are level service F. I think obviously these folks live here. They know Cleveland Road and what it's like to sit at that light or feel dangerous with fast traffic. Don't disagree with any of that. I believe that is an issue in our county. Cleveland Road is just a street that this project fronts. If anything, this provides, from what they've said, not much relief, but it at least provides other connections to get off of Cleveland Road to there. The other thing I would mention is regarding these level of services and some of the low services with certain uses like schools, ball fields, a church on Sundays at noon. There's always a peak demand that is unavoidable to reach those lower level of services. I think a lot of the failed level, the lower level of services that you see here are on account of it being near a school.
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
You don't drive that road every day.
All right, at this time, we will bring our discussion back behind the rail. Who wants to start us off?
Why are you looking at me? All right, I'll start us off. I guess I'm trying to get my thoughts in order here. So question for staff, because you mentioned, and I love how you all do the charts that show the requested zoning versus what's existing. But there was a line, I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the zoning change, because we've got commercial, we've got employment, we've got RS8 going to RS5. How does, in terms of density, there's a line that says the RS5 zoning district, regulations were written, sorry, I have the right part. There was a line where it said there was no discernible change in the density, and I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit more. Does this zoning give more density than what you could have gotten with?
You're saying between RS5 and RS8?
No, I guess what I'm saying is for the, sorry, where did I see that? There are no meaningful differences in allowable uses. Sorry, I guess I read that as uses, not zoning. Sorry, I just wasted everybody's last 30 seconds of their lives. So, okay, I read that wrong. Let me go to the sewer issue for a minute, and I really appreciate the background that the applicant brought about the connections to ACC sewer. Staff, refresh my memory. Did we saw the DR Horton development several months back that required a lift station. Did that get approved by the Merit Commission?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to say this out loud, just so we know, DR Horton got a lift station and now will not allow another developer to connect to the sewer system and will require not only great expense for them, but also greater expense for the taxpayers. Just wanted to state that. So thanks, y'all. Maybe do better next time. DR Horton. I also, do we have anybody from Transportation and Public Works here? Do. Okay, thank you. I have a question for you because I I do drive out to this side of the county every now and then. And I'm always consistently shocked by how crazy the traffic is when you get to this point in the road. And I know that DOT is doing a lot of work at the interchange, and I feel like things sort of stack up from there. And so what is the prognosis for that section of Atlanta Highway?
So I'm Kyle Dalton, I'm with Transportation and Public Works. To be completely honest with you, I have no idea.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
wish I had a better answer for you there, but GDOT projects are largely GDOT, and they kind of do GDOT stuff in GDOT's world.
So Atlanta Highway along that entire stretch is GDOT.
It does come to, it does come to an end, and I cannot remember where that endpoint is, where it turns over back to ACC. I believe it's at the interchange just a little bit below this. I'm not 100% sure.
So I guess like what is ACC's like in terms of the Dozier Drive light and what's going on with Cleveland Avenue? Like how much does ACC control that, and at what point does it, like what point does a road become warrant being a 4-lane road? Is that really the solution to this kind of problem? Like is this area even on the radar for some sort of, I don't know, brainstorming session improvements? I don't know what you call them.
The best I can say is we do know there are traffic issues there.
Sure.
Beyond that, that's I'm in, the stormwater side, the land development side.
Sorry.
Traffic engineering is more apt to answer that question for you. But as far as we know it's on our radar, but
It's just one in a long list of things across the county. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I guess my only other thoughts on this is, I think being situated across from Caterpillar, the fact that it does come out at a lighted intersection, I think that's a plus. I like the general layout of it. I think there's zero issues with multifamily. Not everything needs to be single family. In fact, single family neighborhoods cost ACC money. So, I think I like there being a mixture of different types of housing in the development. And that's all I got for now. So thank you.
All right. Good, Robin.
Ma'am, I'm gonna caution the audience, the public participation point is over. If you have anything
So
you'd
you
like,
guys have no concept of what's going on out there.
ma'am, anyone else? Sarah?
Sort of torn by this one. I actually agree with what you were saying, Kristen, like kind of interesting that I think we talked and struggled a bit about this big housing development company, A, kind of barging its way into Athens, and B, getting a lift station, and then here they are not playing well in the sandbox. And yeah, it's just sort of like, I'll remember that one. I am listening to the public comments. I hear a lot of members of the public angry, maybe even thinking that we, the planning commission, are proposing this. We're not, we're responding to it. I generally think we need housing. I think housing across the street from the Caterpillar facility and in that area is smart. I am concerned about the transportation issues that these folks are bringing up, the access point. Yeah, I wish we had a little bit more information about sort of planned improvements, planned intersection improvements. I don't really know why we didn't line up Caterpillar access point with Cleveland Road. I wasn't paying attention at that time, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things I really like about this development. I am, very inspired by even just the photos of the tree-lined streets with the houses up closer to the street where people are walking and interacting with each other. And if they have a car, then it's coming in around back. So my general sort of feeling right now is I would like to see this there. I would like to see the transportation access issues dealt with in some way. I don't know what to do about the sewer. Because if I'm remembering correctly, one of the conditions is related to sewer, is that right?
The second condition.
Um,
On page 2 of the stuff.
okay, page 2. Yeah, I can't remember how we did that with the Newton Bridge Road development. The pump station was approved sort of at the planning commission level, is that right? Or did we have to kick that up to mayor and commission about that sewer decision?
Right.
Okay.
It was part of the application, right?
Was.
And then we recommended approval and the mayor and commission approved it, but the pump station was baked in. So because that part had no potential for gravity.
Yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place here, but I want to see more housing in Athens, and people aren't gonna always like where we put the housing, but I'm kind of curious. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Alex, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm just wondering on the future land use committee, if this area has come up. And if there's any, are you still just kind of talking and not really coming to any conclusions? But I'm just kind of wondering if you all had any, or even if that's sort of okay thing for me to ask, I'm not sure, but.
I actually was gonna make a comment.
Oh, great.
On our last meeting. We haven't like specifically talked about this area where we're in the gathering mode. But on Monday at our meeting, the gentleman that when it comes to sewer, and I'll only address that part of it because that's really the only thing we hit that makes that I could really say. And he's I think the assistant director of that department, adamantly against pump stations. Like, I mean, and I was sitting next to him and I could feel the vibe from him. Like, it's just a lot of work. And when there is an option, what you referred to earlier on Newton Bridge, there was no option. So that does make the decision making a little different. Here, there is an option. And I would say, yeah, that is something we did address at least. He was very strong. Like, he spent half the time talking about how great our system is and how we can process and do so much. But these lift stations, pump stations just add so much trauma. I think this one, not his word maybe, but the word I'm using.
I'll go ahead. With condition number 2 and hearing the applicant talk about D.R. Horton not allowing that, but if we make it a condition, that particular project's got to come before. That particular project have to come before this? I don't know what they're looking at. They will.
I believe that project will be coming back before this body in the near future.
And that is something that we could, at that point, I will not be in this room, but I hope members will discuss that with D.R. Horton. And could that be a condition put on their property?
There are certain aspects to conditioning that need to stay within the bounds of a project. So I think there could be a connection on their side, a connection on this side, but the in between would still have to be figured out. Taking those conditions off of a property gets you into some very bad legal waters.
I'm just trying to think about the gravity of the sewer station. I always hate putting something on property owners, private property owners, but in D.R. Horton's case, they're gonna be adding a lot of homes there too. So that's something I think that really needs to be looked at. If they can get the other property to sign on and agree to it, and it's just holding up, I really think that is something that needs to look at. As far as the other project, as far as the project with the housing, I like it. I like the design. I like the individual units and the attached units. You know, I think it would set a good price point. I think the comment was made about putting larger homes. I think that would elevate property value. That would elevate everything around there. I think this would be a good property value based on things around it. I like the design. I've driven out Cleveland Road a lot. I come out Cleveland Road. I do not live on Cleveland Road, but I visit friends that live there, and I go on Cleveland Road quite a bit, and that getting out of that intersection is not easy. However, the connectivity through this, to me, adds a sense of relief to that. I mean, that gives an opportunity for people to go to the red light and to get out. And so I kind of like that design. I know, there is a new fire station not far down the road. There's police station not far. So, overall, I don't have a problem with this project from where it sits, on the land. I kind of like the design of it.
Other comments?
Yes, I also like the design, as drawn. The sewer situation is a concern. I don't know how that ultimately gets resolved. But certainly further steps need to be taken there to see what resolution could come about. I did hear the comments concerning traffic. I wish we had maybe a little bit more information about where things are going in that area. GDOT potentially, to see what the future holds for that area in terms of transportation and safety. So a little mixed on it, but do like the design.
I would say the same. The reality is we have a housing crisis and we need more housing. This is a pretty ideal setup and design for a housing. I understand the concerns about traffic, but and maybe you all can provide some insight on this. The developments is what kind of triggers the evaluation of the current traffic setup and if there needs to be any redesign. Is that correct? Right. So if there's a developmental change, that is what maybe triggers engineering and surveying to evaluate if there needs to be additional lights and things like that. So it's not going to change unless there are new designs and new homes. I'm in favor.
I have a few comments, but first I just have a couple of questions. Maybe the first one is for the applicant. Mr. Lane, could I just ask you to clarify and Max, could you please go to the slide that shows the map, the overhead? Yeah, that one, previous one. Yeah, that one there. So am I understanding correctly that at the intersection of the parcel with Atlanta Highway between those two darker orange commercial buildings, that intersection is currently signaled, right? Is that the Dozer Drive? There is currently a traffic light there.
That's correct, on the south side for Dozer Drive.
Okay, and can you, Stephen, do you have the pointer so that you can you just show us the access that people would have from Cleveland Road? Where would they enter this development from Cleveland Road to access that light if they wanted to hang a left at a light rather than the current situation where they turn left directly off Cleveland, facing down speeding cars?
Technically, you'd come in at 2 because this also allows you to get through, but this is probably the main one that is being referenced.
Okay, so there is one down there. Yeah, I was worried about if they're coming through the townhouse, that's a long way, but and what's the distance back from Cleveland, from the intersection at Atlanta Highway there approximately? Is that 200-300 feet or longer?
About 500 feet.
500 feet. Okay, so they could enter here, make a quick turn, and then there's a 500-foot on the light where they could access Atlanta Highway when they get a green turn signal or a green light.
Correct.
Okay.
It just provides another access and one to the light, beyond what they have now is just having to time it.
Yeah.
With no help.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, make sure that I understood it. I think that traffic concerns. Sorry. the traffic concerns that I've heard, I do take those very seriously. I think that is a difficult area to drive. I also have a friend who lives out off Cleveland and I go out there reasonably frequently, and it can be a little tough at certain times of day. And this project has a number of new houses, and so there's a number of new car trips every day. But I think it maybe more than mitigates that by providing access to a signalized intersection. On the some of the other concerns, one or two people said, they don't like the architecture of these, or they don't want townhomes near them for some reason. On those, I'm less sympathetic personally, because I think Athens' population is growing. Right? We all know that. A lot of people my age and older complain at these meetings and elsewhere, like, my children they were raised here. They went to high school here. They can't buy a home here now. They're young professionals and they can't buy a home.
Because of the taxes.
And it's a housing shortage that has caused that to be the case. Right? It's housing prices go up when you have a growing population and you're not building enough houses for the growing population. And so we have a supply-demand imbalance. And so new housing generally is going to make it easier, particularly attached housing, which is necessarily going to sell at a cheaper price point than detached large lot housing, is going to make it so that more people with moderate incomes can afford to continue to live in Clarke County. And I think that's really important to me. And from this body is here to decide not what's the perfect project, but what's the right land use for a parcel. And to me, a 40+ acre parcel across from a major job center and pretty close to both Atlanta Highway and 316 for access to other jobs, it does make sense as a location for housing of this type. So generally speaking, I like the project. I think it addresses things Athens needs. I do take the traffic concerns very seriously, and I'm pleased to hear that I understood right, that
that's not gonna help.
People are going to be able to exit onto Atlanta Highway using a traffic light. Couple of other points. Somebody mentioned something about paying for city services, and is this going to make our taxes go up and that sort of thing? I don't know if the applicant knows offhand what's the assessed value of these parcels right now, and do you have a projection of what the assessed value of 220 some homes on this? Have you guys done those numbers yet?
No, I don't think we have like the tax assessed value on it. We have done that calculation per acre. I'm sorry. On the value of the homes, because there's such variety of the single family to the townhomes, we would like to make them as attainable as possible, but given the square footage, I believe estimating them to be anywhere from high 200s to 300, low 300s is what we anticipate.
Okay. Thank you. So 300,000 times 250 homes would be about 75 million, which is probably about 70 something million more than the current assessed value of that.
So will that lower our taxes since you're getting that much more taxes?
Ma'am, this is not a conversation. There was an opportunity,
I'm sorry.
but I'm not going to.
You guys need to answer our.
Interrupting the meeting, and I would ask you to
You guys need
please
to answer
this
questions.
body to do its work.
Fine, but you guys, if you want to have Q&A, then you need to ask.
By disrupting or yelling, you had your
I'm
opportunity.
not yelling, I'm speaking loudly.
Thank you.
What are you gonna do, arrest me?
I can make a phone call.
Yeah.
Now, you can listen to the discussion.
I'm listening,
Ma'am, you have the
I'm
floor.
listening, but you guys need to listen to us.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
I do have one other question about the sewer thing for staff regarding condition number 2. Is there any, I assume that if that condition were not part of an approval, that at plans review, then they have to discuss, and the city's under no obligation to let them do a lift station, right? So the city, if we didn't put that condition in the PD, that wouldn't prevent the Public Utilities Department from declining the opportunity to do a lift station if they felt that it was not appropriate. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, but then I guess where I come down on condition 2 is simply this. DR Horton, or whoever the landowner might happen to be who has to provide access for a gravity sewer, as long as the possibility remains that Athens could approve a lift station, I think that the adjacent landowner has to be a little more reasonable in negotiating the price for an easement. But if the adjacent landowner knows, it's our way or you can't build your thing at all, then I don't think they have to be reasonable. And I'd be afraid that they would kind of hijack the process. So my inclination would be to not include that condition, with the full understanding that Clarke County is probably not going to approve a lift station, but just not to foreclose it at this stage. Is there any reason from staff's perspective why it would give us significant heartburn if deleted that condition?
Certainly in your purview to recommend that come off the list. It would go forward to the mayor and commission with that recommendation that not be part of it. Similar to the discussion we had with Newton Bridge, the mayor and commission could take it up as part of their same agenda to entertain an agenda item for the lift station at that time. We'll have to see how that plays out. And unfortunately, we don't have public utilities staff here to help us talk through that process. But I think your point's well taken. If that condition comes away, it allows for the opportunity for a pump station, whereas leaving this condition in would not. And I think that
it doesn't commit. If that comes away, we're not committing Clarke County to accept a lift station. Because I understand that public utilities probably won't do that.
That's right. It would just not send forward that signal from this body that that's a must do.
Yeah, okay. And Mark, could you just clarify what you said about the DR Horton thing? If they come through and they want, we often attach a condition that says, you got to give us some, like on this Cleveland Road thing that we're going to talk about later this evening, a condition that they grant us a little bit of right of way for future greenway improvements. And I understood you to be saying, if I didn't misunderstand, that you would, that there may be some legal questions with doing something analogous with respect to sewer. Like if Clarke County said, it's important to us to pull sewer across a parcel adjacent to this one, in 6 months, we see something for a parcel. And we say, we want you to dedicate an easement for a sewer line extension east-west across your property. Is that something that would be unheard of or more legally shaky than what we do for, bike routes and multi-use paths? And
yeah, so 2 points there. It's the off-site versus on-site. So that's the first part, that the zoning law has a bit of casework on not having conditions off the site. Now, sometimes we'll hear applicants speak to Transportation Public Works, Public Utilities Department, and they voluntarily agree to some of those things. So you will hear that sometimes, but for a body, for a jurisdiction to enforce that upon a project or property owner has been troublesome in legal matters. For Athens-Clarke County to take up a policy where that allowance of a connection, which I think Sarah brought up a few months ago, I think is a very interesting point. I did ask around a little bit about that. I don't have any answers. We were trying to find whether or not that's been done in the state of Georgia, and we did not dig any up. But that would be a separate thing, that as a jurisdiction, we have created such a policy. And then at that point, property owners would know that such a policy exists. So those are the two different points there. So as a government, if we implemented such a policy, that could be a benefit to future projects. On a project by project basis, it's a lot tougher and a lot worse in terms of legal matters to try and put conditions on off the site of a project.
what do you mean when you say off the site? Because as I understand it, a condition would be adjacent property owner X is required to dedicate a 20-foot or 30-foot, whatever the parameters of the easement would be, easement across their site, just within the bounds of their site, an easement for sewer line extension for Clarke County.
There's a property in between these, then, in between this project and where the sewer is at the Winslow Park project, planned development.
Right. So I'm saying if we saw that other property that's not before us today come forward and say, we want variances and we want, other special treatment, could we not condition the grant of those things on them dedicating the easement to Clarke County?
But it's project here, there's property in the middle. Putting a condition on that property in the middle that has nothing to do with this project or a potential future project is where the issue would really lie.
Okay, I guess it's a question for another day, but I just wanted to be sure I understood the parameters of the. So any further discussion, or do we have a motion?
You can have, I was just gonna jump in real quick.
Yeah, of course.
So we're just hearing that a competitor is not gonna grant an easement because it's a competitive property. I don't know that that's the case. So I would say that with caution. I'm gonna have to, my vote will go as if that wasn't even said. So I'm just kind of tossing that out there. I don't know what to believe because it was just spoken by the competitor of the competitor. So I'm going to be very careful about that. And if that competitor comes up and brings up their project, I'm not going to care about this project when it comes to their project. It's to me one of those things I'm separating just to understand. So I'm tossing that in real quick.
So we have a future land use request and a rezoning request. Kristen.
So I'd like to make a motion for approval. I follow your line of thinking, Matt, on the condition 2. So I'd like to you guys do the future
land use first.
Yeah, that's true. So we don't have to deal with conditions right now. Yeah, so I'd like to move to approve the future land use.
What's that? Okay, motion by Kristen to approve the change to the future land use and second by Joey. Any discussion of that motion? Stephen, would you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Sorry, I don't have your name on my sheet yet.
Sheila Collins.
I'll start with you, Ms. Collins. This is a motion to approve, yay or nay? Beresford,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sams,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning request with staff conditions 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as outlined in the staff report. Is that okay?
And as outlined on the slide in this.
It's not like, okay, because there is this.
They reworded some of them.
Okay, right. So yeah, so with staff conditions 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7? I guess 7.
Your motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, as their condition.
Yes, as written on the slide, yes.
Okay, so all staff conditions except number 2.
Second that.
Motion by Kristen, second by Joey. Stephen.
Collins,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sams,
No.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
motion passes.
That concludes item 1 under old business. That brings us to the new business section of our agenda. And the first item is 150 McClung Road, zone -24-4-0675.
Really do need to work on it.
Let it get out. Yeah.
All right, our second case of this evening involves properties at 0125.
You're the one.
Okay, 0, 125, 135, and 150 McClung Road, 219 Danielsville Road, 799 US Highway 29 North, and a portion of 375 Mission Drive. Case number is zone 2024-04-0675. So rezone from commercial general RS 25 and agricultural residential to RM2. Also requesting a future land use change from general business, single family residential and rural to mixed density residential. This is a 34.73 acre project looking to have a new multifamily complex on it, a little bit northwest of the interchange of Highway 72 and Highway 29. This is a non-binding concept plan that is part of this. It has proximity to some daily needs and job opportunities. This is right near the Space Kroger out at the intersection there, as well as the other commercial opportunities that surround that development that has been going on for a few years now. Also fairly close to Athens Technical University and the jobs that are in the Athena Industrial Park. So there are some potential future connections in and around this node that has been created out here at the intersection. Staff would love to see some more connections throughout this project. I think you'll see that in our conditions and throughout this report. There is a creek running through this property, and the proposal would be to allow potentially a greenway connection in the future. The Leisure Services Department has a greenway connection going up that creek line currently. So we've got a unique shaped property, and I apologize for that little extra bit. Our GIS technician corrected the maps, and that used to be up there where that piece sticks up on the top portion. But you can see the project here. You can see across the street is the Kroger. You can see quite a bit of other development. I've got another slide here in just a second that shows a little bit more of a contemporary view of the project. But otherwise, we have McClung Road that has a little bit of commercial along it. We have a new multifamily complex down here that you can see in development at the time of this aerial. We have a retirement community up here to the northwest. We have had further development of these parcels on the eastern side of Highway 29. And then there's also a new apartment complex over there. You'll also see, if you drive out on 72, additional development that I think has come before this body. So let me show you what Google has. They're a little more up to date than our aerials. I do think we're getting new aerials this year, so hopefully we'll see that. But yeah, new apartment complex. We have the Tally Road connection that hopefully one day will connect up to Voiles Road intersection and provide a little bit better interconnectivity. And speaking of that interconnectivity, that's what we'd kind of like to see with this project. You can see some of the road network up here to the north that has the potential to be connected to. And then additionally through to Danielsville Road, that would open up some opportunities in this part of the county. So here you can see the future land use change. We have a mix of the different zones. We have mostly general business, which is what most of the portions or parcels that front on Highway 29 are. We have some single family back here that is going towards Danielsville Road. And then we have a little bit of rural in this area. So they're asking to change all of it to this mixed density residential zone. Very similar here with the zoning. We have the mix of CG. We have the RS15 and then the AR property. And you can see here again, the change to RM2. Here's a view from the cul-de-sac at the end of McClung Road. A substantial portion of this was cleared, probably due to some farming activity there throughout the day. But the project does get back into this tree line. So that tree line is not the back of the project. It would go into there a little bit. Here is the property sort of turned on its side a little bit. You can see one of the aspects that we highlighted in the report is this spine road that runs through. And then right here is that connection point that we would love to see brought through this project. The retirement home that you saw is right up on this piece. If there was a way to get this road to connect through as well, we would actually love to see that. That is not a part of this. Again, this is a non-binding conceptual plan. So the rezone request before you is just a change to the RM2. We do find this to be compatible with the comprehensive plan. As this body has heard and seen and spoke about, an increase of housing is necessary. Putting that housing near jobs, grocery stores, and other commercial amenities is definitely a benefit. being able to connect it is that second benefit that we would love to see. So the spine road does begin to help form that network. If there were opportunities to increase that network, we would love to see that as well. Probably from this property, that would just involve kind of stubbing off another street there potentially, or something of that nature. As discussed in the last presentation, we're not looking to have them build a road across anyone else's property here. So compatible with the future land use map, the zoning map, and the ordinance, as it's nearby that nodal development, providing residential behind the commercial frontage. That's what you see in a lot of the development out there. Most of the multifamily sits behind 72 and 29 that has commercial parcels. And then lastly, there are some canopy coverage items that need to be addressed, but those can be handled from a technical perspective. So in terms of the future land use, staff is recommending approval. In terms of the rezone, staff is recommending approval with a condition. And so that condition is to require, so we have a non-binding plan here, but the plan is showing this spine of public right-of-way that would potentially allow for future connections. So staff would like to see that future right-of-way be dedicated to the public and connect all the way to the rear of the property. As we stated, we'd like to see it connect in other directions, but at a minimum to connect through to the rear of the property. So with that, we'll conclude the staff reports. I'll leave you guys the site plan.
Actually, before recognizing the applicant, can I just, the condition is the spine road that runs up to the top left corner of the property. There's no condition with respect to what you said about wanting a connection.
That's correct.
From the, near the entrance across to the other roads.
That's correct.
Right, okay, thank you. At this time, we will hear from the applicant.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Justin Crichton with WD Engineering. Our offices are located at 355 Oneida Street here in Athens. And I'm pleased to be before you this evening representing this request. It's a rezone. This is approximately 34.7 acres, which has been assembled from 7 different tax parcels from the various zoning districts that it currently represents RM2. The intent is to develop the property for multifamily residential use as permitted by the current RM2 district standards. To make this request compatible with the future land use map, we're also requesting the concurrent amendment to mixed density residential. So both the request to rezone and the future land use map amendment, we feel like are supported by the prevailing land use pattern in this area. They're on this corridor, specifically around this intersection, as the commercial services and retail node has developed. We feel like it's an appropriate use, the existing pattern to have more dense multifamily residential kind of behind it. I think it serves two purposes. Provides rooftops to support that, all the commercial services, and it also acts as a transition between a more intense commercial development and step down to a more intense residential development and then come down as you work farther away from the center. As Mark mentioned, so a proper condition of the approval, the developer has agreed to construct the improvements to the road network roughly from the intersection of Nice Drive and McClellan Road to the northwest along the existing sanitary sewer easement. So this improvement will be the first portion of a connection between Danielsville Road and Highway 129 North, which is identified by the most current version of the transportation corridor concept map. Come back to this, but so the bottom snip there shows two connections there. So I'm assuming everybody's familiar with the map and what it is, but it essentially outlines where connectivity options or possibilities are possible in the future, and kind of doesn't necessarily reserve the right of way, but it says this is where we think connections should go. And this request would allow us to build essentially the first third of that connection. So the central roadway will become dedicated public right of way used for a future connection. And so we also concur with staff opinion that the request is compatible with the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, the existing zoning and surrounding development. We are happy to be here this evening, and with us tonight are representatives from the ownership and development team. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but we ask for your vote this evening.
We'll call you guys back up if you have any. If that concludes your presentation, we'll call you up if we have questions. Is there any member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this application? Any member of the public here wishing to speak in opposition to this act? Seeing none, I will bring it back behind the rail. Who wants to start us off?
Well, I'll start. Looking at this project, it seems to fit what's going in down 29. It seems to the type of properties being offered up going down 29. I think it's a good fit. I like the interconnectivity of the road to go out the other side, and they're agreeing to that condition. So I like the project as it lays on the land. So I mean, I'm going to lead off.
Going to invoke the spirit of Lucy Rowland, remind us that this is simply a zoning change. This is not an actual, like, they don't have to build what's on the paper. So, but with that in mind, I don't really have an issue with this. And I really appreciate actually the slide that showed the idea with the road connectivities, because that's really honestly my concern with this area. The development that's happening out there is fascinating to me, and but as we just witnessed in the last case, we don't want things to spiral out of control and it to become an untenable situation. So as it is, like, you know, that intersection by Space Broker, which I love that Space Broker has made it into lexicon. But that intersection is not pedestrian friendly. So, and I'm thinking about all the folks that are going to be living across the road from Space Broker, and not everybody's going to want to get in the car and drive, like, you know, whatever 300 feet to go to another parking lot. So, I guess maybe a staff question. I know you're not traffic engineers, but I'm holding this up and there's like a break in the median. Does that mean that just cars turn in there? Like, there's no people crossing there, right? Like, that's
a signalized intersection.
Oh, it is. So there is a crosswalk there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, usually I get to Space Kroger and I stop, so. Okay, because that was really like, I just want to be mindful of like how people are getting across the road and through this whole area beyond cars. So I don't have a lot of concern, but I just wanted to raise it. So.
Question, staff question, actually. I'm just thinking about, I generally think this seems reasonable. I'm thinking about the condition about the spine or the sort of, I think it's worded as central roadway. So my question has to do with phasing, like if they were to build out that front area first and not the back area, like, would the condition be that that has to be built regardless of how the construction phasing is happening?
I guess that was our intention with the condition, but making that condition a little bit more firm would make some sense.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be a little bit in a gray area unless we were to add some language.
So typically we don't see a preliminary plat with a multifamily development. However, putting a roadway in does trigger the requirement for a preliminary plat.
So that would.
So it's possible they could dedicate that full roadway and build out just the front. And then later on down, build out the rest of the roadway and build out the back and have a connection at that point. So we could get that dedication at a preliminary plat phase, and then it could be phased.
And you think that would be possible with the current wording of the condition?
Yeah, preliminary plat, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Is your question, are you trying to make sure that the developer, if they only build the front third of the project in phase one, isn't required to build the whole curb, gutter, and pavement all the way to the back edge of the property at that phase?
And kind of, yes and no, kind of the other way around, like that they build the first part, build the public right of way, stop, and then it stops. Like, just doesn't, like, whatever.
They've dedicated the right of way, but there's not actually a road on it.
Yeah, that the rezoning is granted, but then the thing that condition is intended to produce doesn't happen. So
Maybe
it'll-
should we ask the applicant to comment on?
Well, maybe, although I don't quite know what it would be, because they could say anything, right? They could say, well, of course we'll build the whole thing or whatever, but they don't have to, like, they don't have to say that. So I'm just I just wanna, I guess, because because that back part is expensive, that's a bridge, right, over Trail Creek, like so you could sort of see. But I think what you're saying makes sense, Mark, and that you're asking for a dedicated right of way, whether it's improved or not, the right of way has to exist.
That's how the condition reads.
Yeah.
If construction of it was the issue, I would add that to the condition from this body, if that's what you chose.
No, I don't feel like I need to do that. I think I just wanted to get that question addressed. I don't know if anyone else has a thought about that, but I think as long as the public, like, in other words, if they were to only build out the front phase, that they still are responsible for that public right of way to go all the way through go all the way through the property. And I guess if it's not approved, it's not, you can't be used, or no, it's public right of way, so if the city wanted to improve it, they could. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that whole thing has to be built regardless of how much construction, or not built, but the right of way has to be there regardless of what's happening with the construction. And I think the way it's worded makes that happen.
Yes.
Because isn't this the same that we saw earlier this month, where the project out near Mitchell Bridge, where the connection right there, they haven't built out that second phase, so therefore that property, if it connected all the way around, we give two entrances. We discussed with fire and stuff, same thing. Same thing.
We need 2 votes on this one?
We do. I guess I have a question, and this, for that. As I read the condition, this project shall include a central roadway that is dedicated public right of way. So that means that, when they do their preliminary plat, they're gonna have to build the road all the way to their back property line. Even if they do a phase 1 that's only a third of the apartments or something, they still have to build the road. Is that not how you read that language?
So the dedication would not require the construction until there was a reason to use the dedicated roadway for the development. So if it's a phased project, hopefully I'm saying what you just said a minute ago. But if it were phase 1, this would say you have to dedicate it. And if they're going to come through the plans review process and get their civil plans done, that would be the alignment for the roadway, but they wouldn't have to build the road all the way to the back, but they would have to dedicate that right of way. When it came time for the second phase, we, Athens-Clarke County, will have already received that alignment of roadway with the first phase. And so it would make sense.
And so Athens would require construction to the property line.
That's right.
Only as far as they need it for purposes of the apartments that they're building. So theoretically, they could stop 100 feet short of the property line if their apartment layout allowed them to do so. And then it would be up to Athens-Clarke County to build that last bit of improvement.
No, when the next phase came, the development of that would have to finish to public standard the rest of the roadway. So we wouldn't be building a roadway with the wording of the condition as it's worded right now. We're getting dedication. The actual construction of it will occur with the construction of the development that's going to use it to satisfy standards for frontage and all the other aspects of development. So it's a placeholder, but it's better than a placeholder. It's dedication of the easement. It's not future right of way. It is right of way, the way it's worded.
And I think it's that third word, to your point originally, Matt, about including a central roadway as opposed to constructing a central roadway. So asking them to include that and dedicate, that could say project shall construct a central roadway that is dedicated. I mean, that would be the alternative to mandating that. But I think the way it's written there, the inclusion of the central roadway is not the necessarily construction of the central building.
Okay.
I make a motion for the future land use approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the requested change to the future land use map by Joey and seconded by Sarah. Stephen?
Collins,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sam's,
Yes.
Sanders, Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Make a motion to approve the zoning change with the condition as stated.
Second?
All right, motion to approve the zoning change with the condition as stated in the staff report by Joey, second by Sarah. Stephen?
Collins,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sam's,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Brings us to item 2 under new business, 175 International Drive. Item number zone dash 2024-05 1026. And with the staff report.
Right.
That's the thing about being a one-man band. There's only one of me. This is working stuff. Yeah, we can go forward or back. Well, I can at least talk about the request. All right, there we go. Success. So this is 175 International Drive, zoning number 2024 -05 -1026. So the request is to take a almost 60-acre parcel that is split into between 2 tracts and turn the RM1 portion of it to RM2 and essentially bring both tracts both to RM2. On the RM1 track, there is currently an existing multifamily complex. It is technically not legal non-conforming, but with how the density works between the 2 tracks, but it certainly doesn't lend itself to being more in line with what an RM2 or an RM1 would be. So rezoning from that RM1 to that RM2 basically brings the property more in line with what the character of that current development is. But what it also does is lead to more space to develop the eastern tract, where the applicant is a concept plan to put in 24 units or around 96 bedrooms. So this is the property. So through the center here, we have International Drive. On the western side is the current apartment complex. On the eastern side is what we call the golf club. This is the undeveloped portion where the proposed 96 bedrooms would be. This main strip right here is Barnett Shoals going down to where Barnett Shoals Gain School are. This is Publix, the Georgetown section. Right below that is our old friend, the Kmart, which is currently being redeveloped and built into a new Kroger. And then we have College Station along the bottom. To the south of the reserve property, the western side, we have University Heights, the apartment or the single family neighborhood. We have some multifamily along the Barnett Shoals area. To the north here, we have the YWCO, as well as on the northwest side, some university property. I believe it's the Poultry Research Center, and then some other offices. So again, this is not 2 parcels. It is still 1 parcel. However, International Drive splits it. We'll be talking about its connection. It will not be the Barnett Shoals, it'll be the Dennis Drive is what the concept is proposing. And we'll look at that a little bit down the line.
So for our future land use, it's basically all mixed density residential, so there is no need to request a change in that. From the zoning, as I stated, it's basically just bringing this western parcel from an RM1 into RM2 and basically making the whole property, or western tract, shouldn't be a parcel, into an RM2. This is just the International Drive cul-de-sac. So what you're looking at right here is where the proposed new entrance would be through International Drive. That's very hard to see, but there is a deer in this picture and he was just watching me. So this is what it would come to fruition if the concept plan moves forward. So we have on the left the reserve drive, and through that cul-de-sac would have the connection to all of the new units that are being proposed. And then the reason why we have the cul-de-sac here is because this is the end of where Dennis Drive turns from being right-of-way access owned by ACC to private along the rest of that southern border. So in order to have those 2 points of access, we would be entering from here up on the very top. And now there's another picture, go a little bit closer to that. But that is basically how Dennis Drive factors into this and why Barnett Shoals is not really a part of this right now. So this is just a close-up for where International Drive ends and how it would be connecting through. One thing of note is that there are some wetlands and a creek running through the south side here. Based off of Athens-Clarke County riparian buffer and water data that we have, our version does show this going up a little bit higher and potentially getting into where some of the stormwater detention and the potential road system would be. That was one of those minor things that we mentioned in the staff report, something that can be done through plans review, but it's just something to note. And essentially would be a parking lot for all of the units lining out. And then as we get to the front of the project or this section of the project, we have Barnett Shoals along here. You'd essentially be coming onto Dennis Drive in order to enter, or you can continue down Dennis until you get to the end of the right of way, at which point you would have two entrances either going back into this first section or going down to the second section. So largely this is compatible to the 2023 comprehensive plan. It brings a parcel that needs to be brought up to RM2 into an RM2 standard, making it more in line with that mixed density residential future land use. The concept plan does utilize an infill property that has multiple accesses to bus stops, institutions, commercial businesses. You have all of the Gaines School area. Barnett Shoals, right at where Dennis is, does have a bus stop, as does the top of International Drive. So it checks off a lot of those boxes, really brings some of that connectivity. We would like to see a greater variety within the housing forms. But because this is a concept plan, it's just more of a recommendation for discussion of the future. It is compatible to future land use in the zoning map. And for the most part, the zoning ordinance is nothing major that the concept plan flagged for us. The one thing of note, though, is that the water and sewer capacity evaluation was not brought in initially with this application. And so public utilities did not feel like they could approve something that they didn't know whether the increased capacity that is being proposed would be able to occur. So because of that, we're suggesting to table this one. Should also be noted, though, that the applicant has gotten that evaluation in this past week. However, public utilities has not had sufficient time to review it. So part of that table is allowing public utilities to look through that evaluation, run the numbers and make sure everything checks out or not. That would be part of this, is that if it turns out it doesn't, it would be something that we would have to take into account. And with that, that concludes the staff report. Thank you.
At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Frank Pittman with Pittman and Gray Engineering. We're at 1050 Barber Creek Drive in Watkinsville. Here to speak about 175 International Drive. I guess I want to clear one thing up, that the staff report, there's an error on the staff report. This whole thing is only 29 acres, not 60 acres. It is, your staff report says it's 29 on each side. It's actually 19 on one side and 10 on the other. So it's only 29 acres. So, but
Wanted to clear that up. As Max mentioned, this thing is split zone now, RM1, RM2, with a section, the cul-de-sac of International Drive in the middle of it. The RM1 side has already been developed back in the 90s with a bunch of big box, 3-story apartment buildings that are 2, 3, 4-bedroom units. The right side, that zone RM2 was never developed, and there's so many, they've got more beds on the left side that is developed than would be allowed by code even for all of this stuff. So changing the zoning to RM2 would fix that. It would get rid of a split zone piece of property. It would allow for 95 more beds, 97 more beds. We are proposing, our plan shows 96. We are only showing 1-bedroom units, and that is because there is a deed restriction on the rest of this property that does not allow for anything more than 1-bedroom units by the people that have the big box thing. They didn't want anybody to ever come in and be able to compete against them. So we're kind of restricted to 1-bedroom units. By doing that, though, we feel like we are providing a different housing type than what is on the property today. Again, the existing housing is big box, 2, 3, 4-bedroom units. We're providing 1-bedroom units in a small cottage setting. So we are providing multiple housing types. As far as the water and sewer capacity goes, utility department is working on that evaluation. I talked to them yesterday, and they said they thought they may get done with it by the end of this week, but it would definitely be done before this went to mayor and commission. I just want to make sure y'all understand that they could never, if the water and sewer capacity wasn't there, they could never get a permit to start construction anyway. So changing a zoning, it doesn't affect the water and sewer system because it can't get a permit if there's no water and sewer. And I think we're here really to talk about land use anyway. So I would ask that you guys consider voting on this tonight. It does meet the comp plan. I think the staff seems favorable to it, even though they did recommend tabling. We'd be open for any questions. The developer is here as well. If y'all have any questions for him, and we would ask for you guys to give us a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlie Hill, and we live at 4895 Barnett Shoals Road, and I am the developer. I was here in the fall on a parcel that is just about 300 feet away from this one. It is at the corner of Research Drive and Barnett Shoals. So that we are doing 66 1-bedroom units there, which will start hopefully right after the 4th of July. So on this property, we are restricted by the deed restriction to do 1-bedrooms. So that's really the reason we're doing more 1-bedrooms there. I definitely touted our quality construction on the ones that we're doing at Research and Barnett Shoals, and that would be the same situation here. We're certainly not going to do anything inferior to what we're doing at Research and Barnett Shoals. We'll do something equal or better on this new parcel. We have also talked to Public Works a number of times about improving Dennis Drive. It's a substandard road. So we would bring that road up to county standards with right-of-way and sidewalks and on both sides of the road. And it's been done for about 20% of the road, but the other roughly 80% we would do ourselves. I was also touting the walkability of last fall of our project, which was about 500 feet from the public. So this is about 250 feet from the public. So most people don't think of the east side as being walkable at all, but this property actually is. It's basically a block away from the entrance to the Publix and over a dozen restaurants. And so it works very well that way. I think the road cutting all the way through to International Drive is a really good thing for traffic because otherwise traffic would have to go up to Barnett Shoals, take so many 90-degree turns, you can't keep track of them, but it goes, it would keep traffic off Barnett Shoals, which then you take a right on Barnett Shoals and go back to College Station to go all the way around. So if you're a vet school student, which we hope we have vet school students, you'd be able to go through to International Drive, go straight to the light directly across from the vet school. So it would definitely relieve some traffic on Barnett Shoals. Let's see. Yeah. I think that's about all I have. I'm certainly open for questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill. We'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this?
It's a yes and no.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Inge Anna Di Bella and I live at 125 Dennis Drive. I'm generally in favor of this because I hate to miss the green buffer, but I also understand that we need housing, especially one-bedroom housing. So my questions are, on my observation is, so we have 24 buildings and only 2 green spaces, about the size of one building. So I think there could be more green space. And I would like to see structured green space, not just a couple of trees, but gazebo, gathering space, especially if there will be single professionals living there, so there could be an opportunity to mingle. And I have one concern about one of the exits onto Dennis Drive. So one is in the middle of Dennis Drive, and the other one I feel is too close to Barnett Shoals. There are 2 of the 24 buildings facing Barnett Shoals. And then, as I said, there's the exit onto Dennis. So that might be a little tight if cars are coming in from Barnett. Especially if Barnett Shoals is not widened. I'm not sure where the space for the sidewalks is coming from. I like the idea, especially sidewalks on both sides of the street, in particular because we have the retirement home right now at the end of Dennis Drive. And I see many times people walking towards Barnett Shoals, even people in wheelchairs. So the idea of a sidewalk is very, very much welcome. Yeah, this concludes my comments.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? And is there any member of the public wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? All right, seeing none, I will bring it back behind the rail.
Do I get a chance to?
Oh, I'm sorry, of course, yes, you do get a chance to respond.
Not really rebuttal. I just want to respond to a couple of her comments. As far as green space goes, again, this is concept. And I'll speak for my client, but I mean, they're more than happy to provide some amenity type stuff in these green spaces, whether it be gazebo. I mean, that's just kind of stuff that comes a little bit later on. There is a large green space area, even though it's wooded down here at the lower end near the creek. There may be an opportunity, and I think staff have mentioned in their report, maybe a trail in that area. I think that would be a good idea that we'd be open to. As far as road connections with Dennis Drive, so as this goes through permitting, Transportation and Public Works, we'll work with those guys to make sure that they're happy with access location points. And they very well may say that this last access is too close to Barnett Shoals. And if that's the case, the project works. Either way, without that, we're showing that as a potential extra access point. As far as sidewalks go, we are required by code to put sidewalks along our street frontage. Hopefully there's the opportunity to also do it on the other side of Dennis Drive. That will depend really on whether or not there's enough right of way on the other side of Dennis Drive, which we can't control. We can't make that property owner dedicate right of way for sidewalk. If the opportunity is there, we're open to do that as Mr. Hill mentioned. So I think that covered your concerns. We appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond to one of them too, or no? Sure. Oh, well, yeah. We wanted to have a large, that whole area at the kind of the bottom of the golf club is all very dense woods, as you may know. And we'd like to have, trails going through there. And I've been looking, at our first development down at Research, it had like a park course, which is an old thing back in the 80s they used to have, but I'm old, so I remember it. And so something like that goes through the woods with different, exercise things you can do.
Okay.
And so that's a really actually a.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
All
right. Is there any further public comment? Bring it behind the rail. Who wants to lead off? Sarah.
First, I wish that all public commenters gave such useful and constructive comments. So I hope that applicants listen because I love it. But anyway, I'm generally in favor of this. It seems like a good idea. I'm wondering if we don't have anyone here from staff, from county staff that can address the public utilities question, do we?
It hasn't been completed.
Okay.
That's just the answer.
I think that for me, the reservation I have about what Mr. Pittman said is correct. Like you wouldn't be able, you'd get stopped at the phase where you want to develop it. You get stopped by the regulations. But I think that what we can't do is change the zoning on a parcel that a person can't actually then do. It just seems like we could run into a legal problem with that. I don't know, staff, if you have something, I guess, like, let's say they are successful in getting a rezone. Eventually they figure out that sewer and water isn't gonna happen, can't happen. And then they own a parcel that can't be developed.
Can you put the slide back up that has the rezone request be current and proposed? Yep, look past it.
Too far.
Right there. Thank you. So the RM2 change is actually happening on the developed portion that has sewer access already.
Okay.
What's on the ground now is RM2. So the change that's being requested is not impacting the area that's being evaluated from sewer capacity or water capacity issues.
Okay.
So I think that was part of the applicant's comment is that would have to be dealt with even today without the zoning.
Without a rezone.
Correct.
Okay. That's helpful. Okay. That's all I have for now. Go ahead.
That was gonna be a question of mine. With it already RM2 over here where the development's going by right, how many? They need the other side to get the number to the right.
This is true. This is true.
But by right, they could already do.
They're already over current. Yeah. They can't do
Both
it.
parts are one.
Because both parcels are one?
Yeah, it's one parcel. But I just wanted to be clear, we're not talking about changing the zoning on the portion
Yeah.
that has the concept
Yeah.
plan. It is a little,
Yeah.
it's a little weird.
There. Yeah.
So they currently own a split zone parcel where they have exceeded the zoned capacity. And they're asking to rezone half of it or 70% of it, which would sort of retroactively bless what's already built and also creates a little bit of additional capacity. But regardless, they can't get a permit to build until Public Utilities does their capacity evaluation. So can I ask staff to just comment on Mr. Pittman's suggestion that an appropriate thing for us to do might be to, approve, perhaps subject to a condition or about the public utilities capacity evaluation. So that, if I understood him right, he said that they ought to have that response before the mayor and commission get their chance to vote. And so the mayor and commission will have the information in front of them about whether there is sewer capacity. So if we indicated our general approval of this idea, subject to sewer capacity evaluation, couldn't the mayor and commission just decide on it at their next meeting?
Yes.
Is there a bad precedent in that or some reason why that's, I understand it's not the first choice, but do you have any real heartburn about it, or is that a fine way to go to?
It's certainly fine for this body to do that. And I think given the circumstances in this case, I think from a staff standpoint, we have comfort with that if that's how you choose to go. However, rezoning something to increase density where we can't affirm that there's adequate infrastructure is not a good practice. So philosophically, not a great idea. The specifics of this particular case, I think there's probably latitude to do what you described. But I just want to say that clearly, that no, across all situations, it is not a good practice.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, I have one other question. Actually, it's a question for the applicant. Tell me what can you say more about this deed restriction? You said, if I understood you right, you were saying that the portion of your parcel that already has apartments on it, that the folks who built that imposed a deed restriction on the other part that's zoned RM2. Is that right? So like your deed restriction is to benefit your own parcel. It's not in relation to another parcel. So if you own both the property that is burdened by this restriction and the property that is benefited by this restriction, and in fact, it's one parcel, don't you have the power to just?
No,
like that?
My client is buying the piece. They're not the current owner. The current owner is not willing to remove that deed restriction to sell the property.
I see. So the current owner of the whole thing is offering to sell you only the golf club.
That's correct. That's correct. It's a big national conglomerate apartment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
And I can probably clear it up easier if you want me to.
Sure, briefly. I think I understand now after all.
Yeah, when I called them to inquire about the property, they said they were open to it, provided that I wasn't competing with them. They have 2, 3, and 4 bedroom apartments at the reserve. So he said, as long as you're only willing to do 1 bedrooms, we're fine.
Okay.
But we would put it, but we want you to know up front, we're going to put a deed restriction on the property that's all you can do. We do not want you competing with us.
Got it. Thank you.
Charlie, they would put the deed restriction on the sale.
Yes.
If it wasn't already there, that's
No,
a condition.
no.
Okay.
Their attorney came up with the deed restriction. We approved it and it's in the contract. It's in the contract.
Okay. So thank you.
Yes.
Kristen.
Question for
And Al.
staff, sorry. It's just an interesting situation where I guess if I have 2 odd pieces of land and they're zoned differently, like I can build on one with the density of the total pieces of land and then pull off another one. And then, because if we don't grant the rezone, we still have a bunch of apartments that are on a piece of land that it's more dense than. Right? Yeah. So like, it's just an interesting, I don't really have a comment other than just an observation of like, it's just a weird situation, right? Like this, how often does this even happen?
I think we mostly deal in weird situations these days.
That's fair.
And also the only reason it seems weird is because International Drive separates the 2 halves, right? We often see a parcel that is contiguous where half is zoned one way and half is zoned another way. And they may choose to build only on one portion.
Right.
That's not unusual,
Yeah.
but here it seems weird because of the road.
It's very, yeah, it's very obvious. Yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and completely forgot what I was gonna say. I propose a yes. I like forgot words right now. But,
I think the word you're looking for is like a
I'd like to make a motion to.
But actually, let me ask you to hold off on that for just a second, because I had Alex in the queue to comment.
Oh, yeah, well, and I was gonna even throw it into the discussion in between, but I can do it now.
Say yes.
Look, yes, we deal with unusual things. That's why we're here. We're the gray area people, but I have bounced back and forth in this discussion. And now I'm bouncing back into the tabling idea because of all the complication in there. I don't know a better way to say it. I can't tell if there's a snake in here or not, but we're dealing with weeds. It's unusual. Staff wants this condition put in to where all the departments sign off on it. And I don't want to get ahead of that right now. Something just moved in the grass. I don't know what it is. It's not a trusting issue at all. It's just, this is tying here, this is here. And so therefore I'm a little less, 5 minutes ago, I was all for, let's just vote this thing forward and move it through, because I know the value of a month when it comes to development. It is extremely costly to be held back a month. And I really do appreciate it. I've done that and it's awful. But this is just different. So I'm just putting that out there.
Joey?
I'm still leaning toward the line of voting it through to the mayor and commission, because we are a recommended body and they're going to have water and sewer. They're going to have that presented to the mayor and commission. So overall, I like the plan. Overall, I think this is great. I think it's for one bedroom, there's going to be a deed restriction put on it. So for us to hold it back, to give a offer of recommendation to the mayor and commission that could be an answer in 2 days or less than a week, and their mayor and commission is not going to meet till I don't know if they got a July meeting or not, if it's moved based on 4th of July. So it'll be in August as well. So we're holding it back. Then we're going to hold it back another month to get to the mayor and commission, because if we don't meet to August, it's going to go September. So the way I look at it is mayor and commission can approve it without water and sewer evaluating and coming forward. We're recommending it to go forward. So I don't see that we keep it at the end of July to September, when it comes to us in August only to recommend to the mayor and commission. They still have the right not to approve it or to approve it. So I say my vote is to push it forward, because they have to have that to approve it. We need it to recommend it. We don't have to have it to approve it. They're the ones that are approving it. We're a recommended body. So I'll step back for more discussion, but I can make a motion to approve with the condition of the water and sewer being met for mayor and commission. Yeah, that's my motion.
For the record, can you clarify, because we don't have a condition, just for the record, we're just recommending a table. If you do want to add a condition, can you state specifically what that condition is?
Well, I don't know that I need to add a condition, honestly, because
I just wanted to make sure, yeah.
I mean, the mayor and commission have to have it to approve it. So I don't know that I need to add that as a condition. So my motion is to approve.
Just to clarify, Joey, I'm not sure I think the mayor and commission could approve a rezoning even without public utilities having rendered their evaluation yet, right? I suppose they could. So I think what I was contemplating, and it's your motion, but as revised, I hadn't heard a second. But I think what makes sense to me is that, we could recommend approval, provided that prior to mayor and commission consideration, the Public Utilities Department has confirmed sewer and water capacity, or words to that effect. So that just what the mayor and commission see is that was we're kind of stating, like, on the assumption that it gets a thumbs up, we don't see any reason to hold back this proposed change. Doesn't mean that's what you have to move, but that's kind of what I had in my mind.
And I definitely hear that. I guess I come from the point of they're the elected body. they're gonna have this presented to them. They're gonna have the same staff report or one adjusted presented to them, which I don't know if it's the exact same or not. So they're gonna hear that. They're gonna have to then make that decision to approve with water and sewer or not. And then they can table it for their next meeting if they so choose. But I don't think we need a condition for that. I mean, I'll put the condition on that made with water and sewer, because I don't think it needs it, but I'll add that condition.
With that process being completed, with that process being completed, I guess. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please.
But no, with the process being completed and for
Demonstrating that there's adequate capacity.
adequate, yeah.
We'll say mayor and commission do get summary descriptions of what was discussed here. So just for the record, they will have access to what transpired.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Joey to approve with the condition that prior to mayor and commission approval. Capacity has been determined favorably by public utilities.
I just have a question about that. If it's not the right amount of capacity, then what? Do they just make the decision whether it is or isn't to approve it or not? I think I'm a little confused as to why we would present information without all the facts.
I think if public utilities comes back and says you can't do 64 bedrooms, you can only do 12 or 38 or whatever, I assume then the applicant would have the opportunity, is that right, Mark and Bruce, to withdraw and revise or something, which they would do anyway if they got it back tomorrow and had to resubmit to us in a month. They would revise if there was a lesser capacity.
I mean, again, this is just a rezone, so you're not voting on a binding plan, you're not voting on a number of units. So it would be a little bit different than just, yes, the applicant would have the opportunity to withdraw or revise. However, the applicant's only asking for a rezone, so I don't see why the applicant would do that necessarily.
Okay, so then the mayor and commission could vote yes or no as they saw fit, because they would have our recommendation and public utilities evaluation.
Yes, correct.
Any further discussion of that motion?
I'll just say, in pushing progress, I could go along with that. That's the snake I think's been whittling around in the brush.
Just to confirm, we're back on the regular schedule of mayor and commission, so this will be July agenda setting, August vote, as opposed to last month, which had the month's delay. Just so you're all aware.
All right, Stephen, do you want to do a roll call?
Motion to approve with condition. Collins,
Yes.
Beresford, Morales,
Yes.
Sams,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And that brings us to item 3 under new business, 1215 Cleveland Road, special use permit 2024-1029.
Good evening, everybody. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to construct a 2,564 square foot addition to the rear of the existing Cleveland Road Baptist Church for classrooms and children's areas. As you can see, it's mostly rural out there in that area. Cleveland Road Baptist Church is an existing church operating in an agriculture residential zoned area. The surrounding area is rural or residential in nature. The church is about 3 miles southeast of the Cleveland Road Elementary School. The future land use map dictates that the surrounding area is rural and they are not requesting any changes to that. Similarly, the future land use is not requesting any alteration to the zoning of the property as well. This is the street view of the front of the church from Cleveland Road. And this is a side view. The back area is where the addition would go. The site plan up there again shows where the addition would go. There's going to be some alterations to the existing driveway right here. And the street trees along Cleveland Road here. The proposed renderings of the elevations for the addition. And the staff recommendation is that we approve it with conditions. We feel it's compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. It preserves the existing structure and preserves the green belt in a way that still accommodates for modest change in the future. It's compatible with the future land use map, the zoning map, and the current zoning ordinance. It's compatible with the surrounding rural character, and the variance to waive the construction of the public sidewalk in the front along the Cleveland Road section per our site design standards. We approved the condition being that they dedicate the right of way to accommodate the mixed-use path as seen on the Greenway Network plan in the future. So approve it with conditions, and that concludes staff.
Thank you. And we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. Mark Campbell, Carter Engineering, 1010 Commerce Drive, Bogart, Georgia. So appreciate y'all taking the time tonight to consider this special use permit. Staff has worked with myself and representatives of the church to understand, the process here for the special use. It's not just get a building permit to add on to your church, but it's to go through this process. So hopefully this is not strange. We know that it is small, but we also think it's important. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to consider it. It's an addition because the church has been blessed. They have an opportunity to grow. It's just a building addition. It's not on the street side. As part of this, we will be planting street trees along the frontage as well that are required. I know there's been discussion about the sidewalk, and again, I'm happy to talk about that as well. I know you hear the term sidewalk to nowhere a lot of times, and sometimes that's not really applicable. That's probably a case here on Cleveland Road where you have to go a very long way to see any existing sidewalks. But we don't want to just ask for a variance or waiver for that. We want to provide an easement so that at such time as any sidewalk and maybe a multi-use path, right? Something more than what's required by minimum code right now, but something in the future that would be able to serve even more people, bicycles or other things can be constructed. So working with staff, talking about that, we thought that the plan was good. I appreciate staff's consideration there. And again, you're here late. You've taken a lot of time. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public here to speak in favor of this request or in opposition to it? All right, bring it behind the rail. I do have one clarification question for staff. How wide is this dedicated future right of way supposed to be? Because the condition that's phrased in the staff report doesn't say. Is it 10 or 12 feet, or how wide are the general?
We need to look a little bit more with TPW at the amount of available roadway out there, but to get to the minimum standard that would allow for the Greenway Network plan, which is a 10-foot or 12-foot section.
12 is what they'll ask for, and if it's not necessary, they'll come down to 10 to get the appropriate structure in. This being a ditch section in the roadway, putting in those kinds of facilities needs a little more width because you have to accommodate for stormwater. So the reason why it's worded that way is we want to be consistent with the Greenway Network plan's expectations. We don't have a dimension just yet. And Greenway Network plan doesn't have section drawings like that are prescriptive lot by lot. We could certainly, if the recommendation out of this body is to bring some clarity to that, we would work with legal services staff to make sure that's included with what goes forward to the mayor and commission. Like a maximum to ask for, not to exceed.
Okay, there are two reasons I asked. One is this document, the special use variance application, that's part of the paperwork here. The 0.5 on the second page that the church submitted this and they referenced a 5-foot easement. They said the church is willing to provide a proposed 5-foot easement for future pedestrian or multi-use path construction, which is obviously not, I think, what the county would have in mind. And so I wanted to make sure that, I think it is important that there be a meeting of the minds, not least because I assume they need to execute legal documents granting the easement to the county in order to get their permits and all that for this addition that they want to do. So the county's going to need to be able to tell them, here's what you got to give us soon, not 10 years down the road when we're ready to build the multi-use.
Correct. If the church were to come through the plan, the way this is worded now, and I think this is what staff is anticipating, we would settle that width during plans review, and that easement would have to be dedicated before they could get permits to begin construction. So that wording's a bit of a placeholder to allow staff time to discover what width is necessary to accommodate the Greenway Network plan.
Okay. So your ordinary process will handle this at the plans review stage. Yeah, I don't see any need to proceed in a different way. I just wanted to make sure that, because I had seen that 5-foot reference in the church's paperwork. I want to make sure that the applicant, and I suppose I should ask the question of the applicant too. I take it that's maybe a typo or.
No, and I'll take it was me. I wrote that 5-foot just because I've done that as a consideration before. So I'll take full ownership of that 5-foot. It was an effort to specifically demarcate a line. And I will say, again, we want to be able to plant trees in confidence that are required by code and some of those other things, so we don't impede on any future development. But at the same time, we don't want to write a blank check for a 30-foot wide easement or future right of way on even though we don't have any proposed plans on the frontage of that church. So there may be a point where we say, okay, we'll just install the sidewalk along the frontage where it doesn't connect to anything. I don't know what that would be, right? Staff did indicate that if it were installed now, it would be within the Cleveland Road right of way along the back side of it. And what is required now would be a 5-foot sidewalk along the frontage that is essentially just inside the right of way. So as a consideration, that may be what's built in 10 years or 20 years, and they wouldn't need to work on site. But based on my experience in designing and installing sidewalks in other municipalities, sometimes you say, well, gosh, it would really be nice if we had a little bit more right of way, a little bit more area for construction equipment or to meander or to do some really fun and creative things. But then you've got to deal with that land acquisition process. And if you've done roadway improvements, land acquisition is the least fun part of that. So we said, well, how about let's provide an opportunity there along the frontage so that when that happens, it could happen. We define it at 5 feet. I don't have a problem with working with staff to better define that based on the way the condition is written. But there would be a breaking point of where if it's 50 feet, then we'll, instead of 5, then we'll have to talk about how we meet those conditions specifically. I hope you understand that, it seems to make sense to not define it now, but we will during the plans review process.
Okay.
Can I clarify one point about that? Might help out. So the right of way is going to be a minimum of 50 feet out there already. The road bed's only going to be 20-ish feet. So there's a substantial portion of property in the right of way that appears to be in the front yard. They're adding on to that. So that's a little bit of the work that needs to be done as well. So that 5 feet might get us 12 plus the strip in between for safety.
Okay. But with all this uncertainty and future negotiation in mind, the way it's phrased on the staff report still feels right to you to just dedicate future right of way to accommodate multi-use path.
With it indexed against the Greenway Network plan, I think that addresses the reasonableness standard that you're talking about. Because there's nothing in that plan that asks for 50 feet or 30 feet. So, so that's why it's worded that way.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
I'll make a motion to approve with condition.
Second.
Motion to approve with the condition as specified in the staff report by Joey, second by Sarah.
And so that condition includes the variance request? Like, is that kind
To
of?
approve the requested variance, is that right?
Yeah.
That's yes, embedded in the motion. Yeah. Stephen. Or any discussion of that motion before we call the roll?
I think I just read it a little bit differently, that the condition says, it talks about the right of way. The variance is listed separately. So do we have to list it separately? Or not necessarily?
In the proposal, the application is asking for the variance.
It's just part of it.
Correct.
That's the request. Got it. Okay.
Let's have a roll.
Motion to approve with condition. Collins,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Morales.
Yeah.
Sams,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker. Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
And that brings us to the fourth and final item under new business, last but not least. 3105 and 3145 Barnett Schultz Road, special use permit 2024-5-1034. And begin with that.
Hey guys, my name is Zach Fregg with the planning department. Matt so kindly noted 3105 and 3145 Barnett Schultz Road. This is the Athens Montessori School on the east side, just past Old Lexington. The request is really for an expansion of the existing special use that is on the property. So the property is zoned RS25, and within the zone, schools require a special use permit. That was actually acquired back, I believe, in 1980. So this is an established use on this property. What they're asking for is to convert the one-story ranch dwelling that's currently being used as a classroom and replace it with a larger footprint that allows for more educational facilities. In addition, because these two properties kind of have some history and have come back for a variety of amendments, and there have been conditions tacked on over the years. The effort here is to kind of bring everything in line, update the chronology, get everything clear and understood with the very storied history of applications and amendments. This is the site. I believe you have Wiltshire right across the street. So these are actually two parcels currently. You've got 3105 to the north and then 3145 to the south. Both of these are the Montessori School's property, but the laser pointer? Yeah, the green. That's it. Ah, yes. This is the one-story ranch dwelling that is being proposed to be replaced. So if we could, future land use map, as mentioned, just about everything here is zoned RS25. The G government zoning you see to the south is another school. No request to change that. Again, we're kind of staying the course. Again, this is our zoning map and what it would look like. One thing we'll get to here shortly is the property is actually in the process of being recombined. So the one thing that this doesn't reflect is ideally this will be a singular piece of property in the very near future. It's a little difficult to see, and I apologize, but these are the existing conditions that were submitted with the application. So again, we've got the one-story ranch dwelling here, old school home. You've got the main campus here and a series of accessory structures and just other educational facilities. There are a series of entrances along Barnett Shoals. You've got one here, you've got one here, and then one out on Sun Valley. And if I recall, Sun Valley actually dead ends. Yeah, Sun Valley dead ends. So in theory, there's not a whole lot of traffic coming in and off of Sun Valley. This is the proposed plan. It is a larger footprint. I believe it's going from roughly 2,500 to 4,900 square feet. Also of note, I believe the applicant had proposed closing one of these entrances, one of these access points. And I believe our traffic engineer concurred with the decision. And it's the one that's just out of alignment with Wiltshire. excuse me. This dark shade is the existing parking lot. It's gravel currently, is what it comes down to. So holdover from a previous life of the project. The rest down here is paved, but this is a little unconventional. You can see the gravel, but that is the house from the front, from Barnett Shoals. These are the proposed elevations. Of note, just like every other case that's come forward tonight, this isn't binding. This isn't necessarily what's being reviewed. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been corrected. This would be binding. So this would be the structure that is being proposed and built. Floor plan, it's going up to 4 classrooms. I believe they've also have an office space and a little bit of storage tucked in here. A new ADA space, which currently does not exist. Staff recommends approval with this, or for this. It's compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. It's compatible with the future land use map. It satisfies the special use criteria. Again, this is mostly a continuation, a slight intensification, but a continuation of what currently exists. We would like to suggest conditions, though, that the recombination plat be completed and recorded prior to obtaining any permits. Worth noting, this was actually a condition on the 2005 amendment to the special use permit that for whatever reason was never followed through with. So even though it was a condition for their previous approval, it has not been addressed until very recently. Now, it is worth noting that the recombination plat has been approved and should be being recorded. The applicant can speak to that here in a moment. So it shouldn't be an issue. We would also ask that gravel in front of the structure be brought up to minimum specs for transportation and public works. With the intensification of the use, we're going to see more traffic. You're going to have more drop-offs, kid pickups and drop-offs. If the project was going in today, they would have to bring it up to standards. So we feel that this would be an appropriate condition for the intensification of the use. Just a staff report.
Thank you. And we will now hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Chase, Zesh, AMT 330 Research Drive, and appreciate you guys sticking it out here for the last one. As the staff report said, this one's pretty straightforward. We're really just trying to clean up the past. There's been several amendments, 2 parcels, a bunch of buildings, access drives, kind of all over. So the recombination plat has gone through the signature stage. It should be recorded within the next week or 2. That condition got added to us here because it wasn't complete at time of application. So basically, just asking to replace the dwelling structure with a more functional use. It will expand capacity, but only slightly. It's almost double the square footage, but won't quite double the capacity for students. It'll just be a more conducive learning environment. We did speak at length with traffic about the drives. Those drives, can we go back to that site plan? I've got a picture here. I just didn't know how to work it. They are one ways. Right now, there's a single entrance with 2 exits. And the proposal will close one of the exits as discussed. So there's a central entrance right here, and then traffic actually splits and has a drop-off zone here, and traffic exits, and a drop-off zone here, and traffic exits. The proposed use would close this driveway as it conflicts with Wilshire. This becomes a dangerous intersection early in the morning. So traffic would leave to Sunset to a stop sign. So that was one of the major concerns that this application addressed. And we, again, just appreciate the consideration and the time of this committee, and I'll relinquish my time.
Thank you, Mr. Zesh. Is there any member of the public hidden by the podium back there? There are no members of the public here to comment one way or the other, so we will bring it behind the rail.
To me, this looks straightforward. I mean, there's not much, I don't know, a lot of discussion. I just want to jump right up there and make a motion to approve with conditions.
Second that.
All right, motion to approve with the stated conditions in the staff report by Joey and second by Sarah. Any discussion of? All right, take a vote.
Motion to approve the conditions. Collins,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Sams,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to the other business section of our agenda. The planning commission chair's report. I guess I just have two things. One, welcome is Sheila Collins, our newest member of the planning commission. Nice work today. Good to have you here. And by the same token, so long, Joey. Pleasure having you, and we'll miss you. Like 5 years. That concludes the planning commission chair's report. Future land use steering committee report. Alex.
Yes, we met on Monday for our third meeting. And it was a good meeting, productive. It was infrastructure panel, and we had public utilities, we had transportation and public works, we had SPLOST group here, we had transit and airport. So we kind of heard from everybody, and it was definitely we interacted a lot, but we heard a lot about what's going on. If we do this, this might happen. And, but we still are, as kind of mentioning, we're in the information gathering stage. Bruce and I will be talking probably next week. Are you off next week? Anyway, we'll be talking soon. I've got a few questions about how we're going from here to there and where we actually have something established. We're, after several meetings, it's time that I'm at least as chair thinking, okay, we've got to be guiding into this. But it's very useful, and the committee's really engaged, and a lot of folks from here in Athens that have a lot of experience in this type of in what's going on, and it's good. It's been a great thing, but we've got a lot of work to do ahead still. All right, and the planning director's report.
Sure. I want to piggyback on Alex's comments about the future land use steering committee. From a staff perspective, we're very pleased with the way that group is digging in, and they are not taking anything for granted. I think the questions have been very, very much on point and challenging, appropriately challenging. And so we've got a lot of work ahead of us from a staff standpoint to make sure that we're keeping them satisfied that they're getting the information they need to help make the decisions that are expected of them. And so I think we've got a really good process. From the planning director's perspective, we have a deadline of tomorrow for the items for the August planning commission meeting. We've got a few things on the horizon that are coming through. So it feels pretty certain we're going to have a meeting. Just can't tell you how many items just yet. Would encourage all of you, if for that meeting, typically school's back in, everybody should maybe be back around. It's always great when you can let us know in advance if you know you're not going to be around, and we can plan accordingly. That's super helpful. And I have nothing else to add.
That brings us to the last item on the agenda, miscellaneous announcements. Are there any? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Joey, second by Monique. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.